All right, so let's talk about the research poster. The research poster is a PowerPoint file. The PowerPoint file is really pushing PowerPoint to its limits and not really using PowerPoint as it's intended, but this is probably the number one way that students in academia or people in academia make research posters. If you have Adobe Creative Cloud and there are many other tools in the Adobe universe or elsewhere that are better functioned, better designed to do this type of work, but the most common is going to be PowerPoint. So I do want you to practice using PowerPoint for this, and that's the template that we're going to provide you. And once you get the hang of it, it's not that it's difficult to do, it's just that you really want to make sure that you're saving your work frequently. Again, because we're kind of using PowerPoint in a way that it's not designed to be used. So we want to make sure that not only are you saving the file, hitting Control S or Command S, but also at the end of every work session, I would encourage you to do a file save as and save a separate copy with the day's date in the title so that you have those to fall back on if something happens to your original file. With these high stakes end of the year, high pressure circumstances, it's usually a good idea to have be a little bit paranoid about data loss. So that being said, I'm going to be walking you through this template file in PowerPoint for Mac because that's the device that I'm on, but the controls are the same. They might be look slightly different, but they're gonna there's pretty much a 100% match up between the things that I'm going to be doing in here and what you'll find in the Windows version of PowerPoint. And we are using the desktop version of PowerPoint, which is the other big concern. Do not put this file into or open or do anything with this file in Google Slides or in PowerPoint Online. Again, because so many things are really specialized and tweaked and changed here, you really only want to be doing this work in the full desktop version of PowerPoint. That doesn't mean you can't save it to Google Drive as a PowerPoint file or save it to OneDrive, again, as a PowerPoint file, but just make sure that you are downloading and opening it in the full version of PowerPoint. You don't want to accidentally go through any conversion process or anything along those lines. So that being said, let's look around in this, the controls here. So the first things first with the template files, you'll see these big black vertical bars or columns on each side. As it says right across the top in big yellow letters, don't worry, these black columns do not print. They are not part of the printing space, so you don't have to worry about it. And there's a lot of helpful information from the people who built the template file. There's a lot of really helpful information in here, so I would encourage you to use the zoom controls in the bottom right-hand corner and zoom in. And then you can use your scroll bars to read what that content is and how this works. So our poster printer at school prints 42 inches wide, so instead of being 36 by 48, this is going to be a 31.5 by 42 inch poster, but if you read through here, again, everything else is going to be really helpful information for you. But before we dig into these object placeholders and what the help text says up here, I'm also going to show you a couple more things and talk a little bit more about the zooming. So the button down here in the bottom right corner next to the zoom bar control is going to take you out to the full screen so you can see the whole file. And again, this file is going to be 42 inches wide, printed out on a huge piece of paper. So I really want you to be conscious of the fact that what you see in the PowerPoint file when you're zoomed out like this is not a perfect representation of what's actually going to print. If you think about it, kind of like taking a three-dimensional shape and trying to draw it on a two-dimensional surface, you lose some of the information, right? So it's kind of like that, in the sense that if you have this big 42-inch wide piece of paper and then scale it down to a small part inside of, if you're working on a laptop, like a 13-inch screen, so maybe on your screen it might be like 6 inches, you're just not going to get a good representation about what's going to happen there. So this is a helpful view for you to zoom out and get like an overall picture of your poster, to understand kind of like the balance of your poster. If you zoom out, you'll be able to see the big chunks of white space, or the fact that you got 3 pictures in the first column but no pictures anywhere else, like stuff like that. This is a great view for getting a better overall understanding of your poster, but do not use this view to do editing with. This is an overall perspective, and then you're going to zoom in. I believe the maximum zoom level is 400%. So I'm zoomed in so close that PowerPoint's giving me a warning saying that I probably can't see anything. And there's not a ton of use for this 400% zoom area, but it could be helpful if you're struggling with making sure that something lines up appropriately. Let's see. PowerPoint doesn't like that I jumped all the way to 400% volume. There we go. But zooming in and out is something that's going to be helpful for you to get a better understanding of where you are with the poster and what's going on. But when you come in to edit and put text in there, you're probably going to be somewhere between like 50 and 150% zoom, somewhere in that range, to get a good middle ground understanding about where your poster is. So with that, let's look at, let me zoom back out now that I'm saying that. Let me zoom back out and talk to you about changing the themes and some of the broad settings on your poster. So if you go to the Design tab, you can click through these variants, or actually these are under the Theme section, but if you can click through there, and you'll see that it changes the poster. So this one is a 3-column view, which we really don't have a lot of use for. There might be times at some points, if you're doing like the problem 2 poster, so if you're watching this later, that you might want to use this. I've never seen this one be useful. And again, this one's not all that useful for what we're doing. So really, you're almost definitely going to be in this 4-column view. And then in some circumstances for problem 2, with some advice and advisement, you might find this one helpful. But this 4-column view is going to give you the best balance between readability and structure. If you have your sections are too wide, and make the lines of text get too long, and just things like that. So this is a good one. This is, by the way, where if you accidentally somehow click on one of the designs, this is how you probably changed the themes of your PowerPoints in years past. Everything's going to be all messed up and all weird. Don't panic or freak out. Just scroll back over to the beginning and make sure that you're on the appropriate column, and everything else will come back and be just like it's supposed to be. So over here, this other box, which looks empty, and if you're on a Windows device, this your little down arrow will be over here to the right, but this gives me some options here to change the colors and the fonts and the backgrounds. Really, the colors and the fonts are the only things you're going to want to change. So if I go into colors and I start clicking around, you'll see that it changes the overall color theme of the poster. So it changes the top color, it changes the headers, it changes the color of the line in between there. It also changes things like your hyperlinks and the colors of that. So this is helpful for you to be able to click through and pick a color theme that matches with what you're talking about. So if you're, if I'm doing something with aqua therapy and using physical therapy in the water, maybe I want something, well, not green. Your water shouldn't be green. Strangely enough, that color theme was blue, but it was actually kind of mostly green. So, maybe this color is a little bit dark for a pool water type color. And if you can't find one of the pre-built themes that you like, you can actually come down to the Customize Colors option. And so the Customize Colors option is going to allow you to click through the different accents and the different colors that and this is what the Mac color picker looks like. Yours will look different than this, but this will allow you to change the theme. And unfortunately, you're going to have to kind of save that and then look to see what changed. Like that wasn't the color for the header area, so I got to come back in here. This one doesn't really live preview. So I think maybe this color might end up being that top color. So let me see if that changes. There you go. So that's my custom color, and it gets updated everywhere, which is really helpful. And that's a good time to come over here and show you this part with object placeholders. So this is one of the reasons why you want to use these object placeholders, because if you see, there is a stack of these section header placeholders that are over here that you can click and drag, but the nice thing is they are coordinated so that if you change the theme of your poster, it goes through and changes everything to match. You don't have to go through and individually change the fill on each of these boxes, which would be super tedious. That also extends to the font choices. So the default fonts are certainly in here are certainly helpful, good starting points. If I wanted to switch to this Gill Sans, you see it changes all of the section headers, and it changes the the titles up top, and it overall thematically changes the font choice. But if I can come in here to fonts, just like with the colors, I can do a custom font combination. Never mind. On my Mac, it's not letting me do a custom color font combination, but you can, on a PC, you can do a font combination that you want from the theme. There might be a different way for me to add particular fonts, but the way you do that with the built-in fonts are right there. And again, it changes everything for you, so it keeps it nice and consistent. So those options for customization really allow you to, while you're still using a template and still matching the rest of your peers in the overall display from the capstone or from the problem 2 posters when they go out in the hallway, you still have a way to make your poster unique to you. So I would encourage you to find, probably not go exploring over here on the left, but to explore the color combinations and the font combinations to find something that matches your aesthetic and your project. So the other section header that's on here is the picture placeholder. So if I take this and drag it in place, just like with the section headers, I have, I've never clicked through to see how many there actually are, but there are more than you need, where you can pull pictures out. And again, going back to that zoom level, you can get a overall perspective on your poster and say like, okay, so let me get a picture up here so we can balance out pictures that go on the left side and the right side and the top and the bottom. Let me find some pictures here, and I'm just going to drop in pictures. Great. Obviously there aren't pictures there, but that gives me a nice way to plan my my poster. So if I wanted to show an evolution of, 3 different designs in my ideation process, I can, work on balancing those out and getting that all arranged. Now the picture placeholder comes through kind of with a, I don't think that's necessarily a wide screen, like a 16:9 aspect ratio, but it's a little bit wide. If that's not what my pictures look like, or if I want to do like screenshots of an app that I made, so I made it like a phone aspect ratio, I can come in here, click on the shape, and come up to shape format. And then again, this might look a little bit different on the Mac versus the Windows version, but you're going to have an option under shape format to change the measurements. So right now, this is basically like a 4.5 by 7.5 picture. So kind of like a 4:7 ratio, which is not a super common picture format. So if I wanted to change that to be, let's say I wanted to make it a 16:9, which is like a vertical, a 9:16 would be a vertical picture, so a screenshot. I probably don't want it to be 16 inches tall on this poster, so I can just chop that in half to keep that aspect ratio there. So I could say, let's make this be, what am I going to do? I'm going to make that be 8 inches tall by 4.5 inches wide. And so then that gives me kind of a screenshot picture. And then I can balance that out too. So if I wanted 3 of those, perhaps, I can click through. Let me delete those. I could delete those, and then I could Command D should let me duplicate. So yeah, that lets me duplicate those. But oh, hey, it's too tall. So this, without having to put pictures in there and deal with that, you can use this to balance out your images and figure out kind of where you want your slide to be. It's like, oh, well, that's too big. They're not going to fit next to each other, so let me drop that aspect ratio down a little bit more. And if I wanted to keep that aspect ratio, you can lock the aspect ratio and then drag it down to fit. And it's like, okay, well, let me see how I can make that fit. And again, saves you a bunch of time and effort because you can do some of that pre-planning work and then create the images that you're going to put in there. You don't have to do it that way. If you already have the images picked out, you can just drop them in. To access those images, you can drop a picture in there. You can click on this and it will pull up a menu to allow you to navigate to a picture, or you can click and drag a picture in. So if I wanted to do, let me go to unsplash.com, and here I'll pick this image from the front page. So here's this picture that I just drug in from my desktop. And it actually dropped it in up here in this logo. So let me undo that, because I think that logo may have been selected. So let me select this box. And then when I drop that picture in, it puts it in place. Here's this laptop that was on the front page of Unsplash. And if I click into that, come up with the picture formatting, I can see, I could make changes to this, or I could crop it. So maybe if I didn't want, you can see actually it was already cropped because I had my my frame already selected and I put the picture in the frame. PowerPoint trimmed the top and bottoms of the picture off to make the picture fit in that aspect ratio. So if I wanted the file, if I wanted to see more of the desk, I could pull it up a little bit in that box. You zoom in better so you can see it better. All right, so before it was kind of balanced in the middle. So if I wanted to say, like, here's more of the desk, and I can click out of there and it crops it back into place, but doesn't actually destroy it. If I later decide, I want to make this be a 16 by 9, or if I wanted to manually change it, I could draw these black bars in and give me a different ratio, but it doesn't destroy the picture. So it's non-destructive cropping, which is nice. And then I can do what I want with it from there. So if I had pictures, so let me zoom out a little bit, scroll over. Let's say I had these two placeholders and I wanted to make sure that they were aligned. So if I could use the little smart guides there if I wanted to, which are helpful, but if you have lots of things like across your document, sometimes it'll line up with something way over there that you don't want it to line up with. So I could drag and select both of these things. I guess I have to drag and select all of them. There we go. And I want to make sure that they're like perfectly aligned with each other. Then I can come over here to the under shape format is where this one is, but it's also typically like under the home page. But I can arrange, so I can have PowerPoint do this perfectly for me, which means I can go to Align and then say Align to selected objects, which is already clicked because I have two things selected, and I can say make these two pictures be perfectly lined up. You can see, I don't know if you noticed, this little left one dropped down just a teeny tiny bit. Even though it looked like it was matched up, it dropped down a little bit because they weren't actually perfectly aligned. And part of that might be because if I click into this, I can also look to see, are these the same size? So I can look up here where that measurement is and I could see, oh, well that dropped down because this one's actually 6.17. So you can change that. So if I wanted it to match perfectly, copy that value, come in here, paste it in there. And again, it doesn't look like it changed much. And it was only like, a fraction of an inch or whatever. But in this case, it's just a demonstration of the fact that there are precision tools in PowerPoint that will allow you to do things better, faster, and with more precision than clicking and dragging. A lot of times trying to rely on the smart guides for the software don't always do what you think they're doing. And sometimes that can be because you're, again, zoomed out so far that the scaling down of that 42-inch wide poster to the couple inches that are on the screen, it's not in a nefarious way, but it's deceptive. You don't actually have the right information because you're getting like a preview from the slide, because really the PowerPoint's not supposed to be used for a 42-inch wide piece of paper. It's supposed to be used for, a digital image that you use for power. So you can see that maybe there is a disconnect between the outcome and the tool. But again, because almost everybody has PowerPoint in academia, and because people have done this type of work to make it exist, like to make it possible, PowerPoint is probably the most common tool for creating academic research posters. So you just have to go into it understanding that there are some failure points, some technological flaws, some shortcomings where you might want to go that extra mile or extra couple of clicks to use those more precise tools, just because, again, they're going to give you that level of precision easily without too much frustration of, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but trying to like align two things and they click and then it like clicks to something else. You're like, damn it. And they're like going back and like, and then that's just really frustrating. And you can just go into that, those formatting settings. Once you click on the pictures that you want, you can go into that, again, go into formatting settings and make adjustments pretty easily. So that's kind of the overall spiel about using the software, or using this template this way. So do we have any questions that I can help explain? Anything I can provide some further clarification on? Again, I'm recording this for YouTube for the future, but for those of you who are in the Teams meeting watching this right now, feel free to come off mute, ask a question, type it in the chat. I'm not going to say your name because of the recording, and I'll repeat your question out loud, again, for the people who are watching the recording in the future. So those of you that are here, do you have any questions, anything I can help with? Okay. All right, question in the chat. When I insert the logos, it cuts off and it's not the full picture. Yeah, great question. All right, so that's kind of the same situation as I showed with the cropping. So let me navigate. Let me get that Biomed logo. I have it on my computer real quick. So let me pull that up, and I'll try to insert it, and I'll show you what the deal is there. Give me just a second. I got to drill down to the place where that is. All right, so let me take this Biomed logo in, I'm going to use the black Bel Air High School Biomed logo. Let me drop that in. So yeah, let's zoom in on this. So you see in the top left corner, I put the logo in, but it's cut off. So if I click on that picture and go to crop, you'll see the rest of the image there. So this is, again, just because the little logo box is a square aspect ratio. So if I want to fix that, or it's rectangular, but it's not the same dimensions as our logo, I can just drag that out and then drag it out over here until I can see the whole logo, and then there it is. So it is a wide, I know for the research poster purposes, I know it's wide. It can be a little bit frustrating, so you can click the bottom corner and shrink that down the appropriate way and get some space over there. And then with your title, the text box comes all the way over here, but once you have your title in there, if you have a nice short title, it won't actually come this far out. So that's the same for any picture you drop in, whether it's the logo image file or the any other picture that you do. If the photo, the original file, doesn't fit into the placeholder, it's going to get cropped. That's the kind of the purpose of a placeholder file. Our placeholder is to be the box that the picture fits in. And if it doesn't fit appropriately, again, you can just click on the picture. Let me drop in this PLTW white logo. So demonstrating again. So it looks cropped, it looks messed up. You click on it, go to picture format, go to picture format, and then there's the crop option. Let me see what's available down here. Yeah, so it gives me a couple different options here. I could also, I guess, at least built in on the Mac, is this option to go to fit. So it will make the picture fit in the box, so it scales it down. And then I could blow it up to make it fit the right size. So either option, you can manually adjust the crop, or you can fit it instead of filling it, which is another duality that you see sometimes with placeholder items, is fit versus fill. So in this case, you're going to want to fit. Great question. Thank you for asking that. Any other questions? All right. So I will just take this moment for the people here in the meeting, but also for YouTube in the future, and point out that on our Biomed website, bahsbiomed.com, we have under the how-to section, we have a couple different support/guides, and this one right here, design a research poster. So on this page, there are a ton of tips, suggestions, pieces of evidence and support for you to be successful in creating your poster. Things like how to look up the image quality of your picture to make sure that it's going to print at the appropriate size, where to find some high quality Creative Commons Zero images, how to use that alignment tool, things about the design of your poster, like making sure that you have text and texture and consistency and so on. And then making sure that you, in the end, once it's time to deliver your poster, that you export it as a PDF, and then you'll be submitting a PDF. You really want to make sure that, especially if you're doing things with custom fonts or colors or things like that, that you lock this down by exporting it as a PDF and submitting that, so you're not relying on the fonts that are installed on my computer. So if you do a special font that you downloaded from Google Fonts or something like that, and you want to put it on your poster, but if you just send me the PowerPoint file, there's going to be an error because your font is installed on your computer, not mine. But the PDF can save some headaches there and make sure that it looks the way you want it to. So that being said, we really want to make sure you're using this resource, and also feel free to reach out to Ms. Hamilton and myself. There are resources built into that Ms. Hamilton's been building from our different discussions and lectures and courses in our It's Learning page that are accessible to current students. So I would encourage you to jump in there and use that as well. But for those of you who aren't looking, who are from elsewhere, this is the best resource that I can give you. All right, so 1 second, we got another question. Let me switch back over to that. All right, when I take a screenshot, how could I tell if the quality changes when I edit the size of the picture on PowerPoint? Yeah, so, okay. Perfect scenario, plenty of time and all that type of stuff. You really want to be doing your image editing somewhere else, like Photoshop or a different image editor that you have access to. PowerPoint has tools built into it for image editing, and the things we just showed, like with crop and whatnot, are certainly viable. But best case scenario, you bring in a finished image into PowerPoint. So the best way for making sure that this question here is asking about making sure that the screenshot has the right image sizes to print, which basically means does it have 300 DPI or higher, is to use that resource that I linked on that website. It shows you how to see what the DPI is of the image. But since we're science-oriented people, if you think kind of about like gas laws, chemistry, basically what we're doing here is if you take a picture and make it smaller, you increase the density of the pixels that are in there. And if you take a picture and you make it larger, you're decreasing the pressure and you are making it so that the pixels are further apart. So basically, if you're taking a screenshot on your computer, depending on the type of computer you have and what image it produces, it's going to be, even if it's a laptop, it's a 13-inch wide image. Most screens, actually, I think basically no screens, are 300 dpi. They're not print quality. Even the best ones are like 240 or something. But if you still take that picture and you shrink it down, you basically increase the density of the picture. So you can make it be 300 dpi because you make it smaller. Does that make sense? It basically comes down to like a little math equation. What's the density of my... You can use the tool I showed you on the resource page. That's figure out what the DPI is with that particular size of the image, and then you can shrink it down, and as you shrink down the picture, you increase the density of the picture to make it be print quality, 300 dpi. So I guess the second half of that equation of the question is, how can I tell if the quality changes? You have to rely on the numbers because your screen isn't the same quality as print. So even if it looks good on the screen, it might not look good on paper. You have to check the numbers and make sure that it's going to work. I can pretty much guarantee that any picture you get off of Unsplash is going to come through with all the image quality that you need, because you're going to be printing it inside of one of these columns, and it's only going to be like 6 inches wide at the most. Any other questions? And feel free to come off mute. The recording is recording my side of the conversation, not anything that's happening in Teams, so you can ask your question out loud. Okay, so I don't see any more questions coming through. Are we good? Get a thumbs up in the chat if you are feeling good about where you are. You just need some time to go get to work. Yep, so if you go to that article, you're on Windows, you can, through File Explorer, you can find the properties, and it should be, the DPI should be in there. If not, you could also open the image in Photoshop to see what the quality is of the image, but and if that article is out of date, Anthony, please let me know, and I'll work on finding a better one, but I believe it was updated recently. If that doesn't work and you don't have access to Photoshop or something like that, you can just email me the file and I'll check it for you in Photoshop and give you the stats there. And then is there any way to tell if the text and picture is truly big enough when it is printed? Yeah, so unfortunately it's a little bit tough to know with like absolute certainty. Depending on the font you choose, you want to probably be in the upper 20s on the font size for the body copy. So meaning like the stuff in the chunks of text that you're doing should be in the upper 20s. Depends on the image, depends on the fonts that you pick. Some fonts, even though they're 25, because they're like a heavier font, like thicker, they're bigger, things like that. But if you actually, coincidentally enough, on this screen over here, right underneath of my head, is verifying the quality of your graphics. So this is actually for both of you. So it says the template is 100% the size of the final poster. So if you set the zoom, all text and graphics will be printed at 100% of their size. To see your poster look like when it's printed, set the zoom to 100% and evaluate the quality of your graphics before submitting your poster for printing. So that's what the people say who make the template. My first inclination would be to trust them on that. So try that out. I've also had people, typically my advice in the past has been, if you have like an HDMI cable and a large enough TV to represent like the size of the poster, you can plug your computer into your TV to get, a rough approximation of the right size and get a better understanding if it's going to come across the right way. TV technology, if you have a newer TV, is probably going to be pretty close to accurate and give you a good understanding about the size of your poster and how that's going to work and an understanding of the legibility. Any other questions? Sorry, apparently my neighbor's landscapers are here, so it's getting loud outside. Anything else I can provide? Any other support, direction, resources I can send your way? Let me know. All right, so it seems like we are good in the chat. For anybody who's here or anybody in the course, if you need some help or support, always feel free to email me or Ms. Hamilton, and we can provide you guys whatever direction and support we can. If we get enough questions about something or things need to be updated, we will update that resource on our website that we shared earlier in the video with the learning that we continue to do with the process. Providing additional resources to help make sure that your poster is a representation of your learning that you're proud to stand in front of, because it is going to be a pretty big artifact and it's going to have your name in big letters across the top. We want to make sure that you're excited and proud to show it off. So we're happy to provide support via things like this, or if you want to have a one-on-one meeting time to talk about your poster or get feedback about your poster, more than happy to do that. Please make sure you communicate with us so that we can find a time to do that as soon as possible. All that being said, I think that's a good place to stop for today in our explanation of how to use the poster template and the poster file in PowerPoint. Not a ton of instruction today on the design principles, which are different than the technical use of the PowerPoint file. If there's an interest in a video about that, let us know, and we can produce a video about the design principles as well. But for now, the most technical aspect of the creation is using this particular PowerPoint template to the best of its ability, and hopefully this resource gives you that.